big things could be happening for the Timberwolves, and big positive things.
You fall for me like I fall for you.
Alrighty, everybody, welcome back to another episode of NBA Now. It's your boy Dom, and we're gonna get right into things here today. So, today, we are talking about the Minnesota Timberwolves, and really, we're just talking about the recent success that they've kind of started to have, and just how much this season matters for them as a franchise and for a lot of their players and stuff like that. But to kind of start things off, Minnesota Timberwolves are currently the 8th seed in the Western Conference at 11-11. And as I kind of talked about in yesterday's video, pretty much that section between Dallas at the 4 seed at 11-9 right now, and even Sacramento at the 11 seed at 9-14 is super close. Now Sacramento's a little bit farther out of that, whereas like Denver's 10-11. At the 10 seed right now, and that whole really 4-10 is super close in record. I mean, when you look at win percentage, it's from 47% to 55%, less than a 10% difference in win percentage between those 6 teams right there, and it's just kind of insane to look at that and just see how close all these teams are together. And Minnesota's in there. I think Minnesota is a team that, last year I thought was gonna take the jump, adding Anthony Edwards to the team, and hopefully, I thought the team would be healthy last year and everything like that, and they would be fighting for a play-in spot or something like that, and they came out and they didn't do that. They were not a very good team, and then the pick that they owed it to the Golden State Warriors ended up resulting in them getting Jonathan Kuminga. And really last year was just not a good year to be a Timberwolves fan. And not like it's been a very good time since they had Jimmy Butler to be a Timberwolves fan. So I apologize to all those Timberwolves fans out there for what y'all have had to deal with, because y'all stay loyal to your team, and it just doesn't get better. But tomorrow they are going to be playing against the Brooklyn Nets. The Brooklyn Nets currently are the top seed out in the Eastern Conference at 15-6, so that should be a good test for them tomorrow. And genuinely hoping that they can kind of compete and maybe win that game, just to help them out. And then after that, they will not play for a couple days, but they will play again on Monday, and they will also play the Atlanta Hawks on Monday. Another team that kind of started off slow and is kind of getting its thing together here as of late, which the Atlanta Hawks are now the 7th seed. They started off really slow though, so they're starting to really get things together, and that's going to pose a challenge the next couple games for the Timberwolves, and we'll have to kind of see how they kind of react to that, especially just the way that they've kind of got things together this last little bit. Now, they did just lose a couple days ago to the Washington Wizards, and it was supposed to be a good game and everything like that. Really, they lost by 8, but there was some positive things there. Cat had 34 and 10. Anthony Edwards had 25. And then Jared Vanderbilt has just been very solid for them. He's averaging 5 points, almost 8 rebounds and an assist per game. But he had 12 rebounds in that game. And really, it was just kind of the Wizards by committee, with Harrell doing the most scoring at 27 points per game. Or not 27 points per game, 27 points in that game. And then Gafford kind of having the most well-rounded game at 18 and 10. But that's just kind of how the Wizards have been this year. But when we look at this Timberwolves roster, when we look at this Timberwolves schedule, they started off the season at 2-0, and Not like that's anything big because it's 2 games in, but they started off the season 2-0 against some bad teams. And then they started to struggle as they kind of headed into November. And to start off November, they came into November already with a 1-game losing streak against Denver, and then extended that to be a very long losing streak. I mean, they lost 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 games in a row in November, and then ended up getting a big statement win against the Lakers to kind of try and help them kind of get things back on track. They ended up losing a couple more against some other good teams in the Clippers, and then the Suns, who obviously I talked about yesterday about their big run that they've been on. So make sure you guys go check that video out if you haven't already. But ever since then, they've been kind of on their thing. They've lost 1 game since playing the Suns on the 15th in the rest of November. So they won out pretty much for the rest of that month, only losing to Charlotte. And then coming into this month, they did obviously, like I said, lose to the Wizards, but they have a tough schedule this month. So it's a big question on, are they for real, as they kind of battled back from that terrible record they had to start the season after all those losses that compounded at the beginning of November. But them getting some bigger wins towards the end of November and kind of beating up on teams that, you know, were pretty decent. I mean, like I said, the Kings are a little bit out of that play-in spot, but the Kings aren't a team that you can just roll over every single night. Some nights they come out and play well. And then the Spurs, they beat handedly, who are typically a team that's in every game. They ended up beating Memphis by over 40 points, which is kind of shocking for Memphis, as they did just set the all-time the all-time difference in points for a game or something like that, where they just absolutely annihilated everything that the OKC Thunder wanted to do today, winning by the largest margin in NBA history, where they came out and put up 152, allowing only 79. So big time from them. Everybody had a good game for that. But going back to the Timberwolves, this season matters a lot. I made a video earlier on in the year kind of saying, is this it for Cat? He was liking tweets of, hey, free Cat, and saying that he was hacked and everything like that. Obviously, we saw kind of him getting annoyed at Edwards when Edwards, got the ball and there was 20 seconds left on the shot clock. Karl Anthony-Towns just walked back to go on defense because he knew that Edwards was just going to pull the shot no matter what. So I think we've seen some frustration out of Cat. And, if they continue to win, a lot of that stuff kind of gets swept under the rug. That's just kind of how it goes in all sports when you're winning. Is if you're able to win, all those little things don't end up mattering as much. But when you start losing, that stuff compounds. That stuff is repeated not only in the locker room but by the media, and it just makes it tougher overall for every player on the roster to want to be together and cohesive and with these other guys when eventually it starts to become, I don't want to play here anymore, right? And I think that was a big concern for, could that be happening to Cat as the season was kind of progressing. But as they kind of got stuff together here, and they're sitting at 500 currently. If the playoffs started today, they'd be in the play-in tournament, and they would have a good chance to make the playoffs, obviously against some good teams in the playoff tournament, or the play-in tournament, sorry, with the Clippers, the Blazers, and the Nuggets all in there. But this is a team in the Timberwolves that have a lot of talent. Multiple number 1 overall picks, multiple all-stars or former all-stars on the roster, and plethora of just role players across the roster. Taurean Prince has been good for him this year, and they have played better without having Patrick Beverley, although Beverley is a decent player in his own right. And then, just they've got Malik Beasley. They've got scorers off the bench. They've got pretty much everything really checked, other than, a rim protector. Since Cat's not really a rim protector, and then Naz Reid, I want to say, is like 6'8" as their backup center. So they don't really have a rim protector per se for defensive purposes. But other than that, you've got everything across the board checked. I mean, you got shooter, you got scorer, you got wing that's versatile, you got star player, you got high potential guys. I mean, it's all checked. You have a relatively new coach that has done decently well with you. And if they end up not making the playoffs this year, I think Karl Anthony-Towns will finally request out. I think his patience has been, quite honestly, just astounding that he stayed so patient with this organization. But he isn't as young as he used to be. Now he's not an old player by any means, but he's been in the league for a while now, being drafted number 1 overall. Quite a long time ago for this team. I mean, this is a guy that has been in the league since 2015. So this year is his 7th year in the league, which is typically kind of around when we would see a caliber of his player make that decision of if they're going to stay or if they're going to go. This was around the time when Anthony Davis ended up deciding that the Pelicans weren't for him long term. And so if Minnesota is able to kind of fight their way into the play-in or fight their way into the playoffs or whatever it is, I think Towns will stay and will want to keep running things back and building with the team that he's got here. But if they, struggle a lot, especially like in this upcoming month and stuff like that, and end up just falling out of this playoff picture, there's a very, very good chance that we don't see Karl Anthony-Towns in Minnesota next year. And if you do run into that situation as the organization, it gets pretty dicey there, because at that point you're looking to trade D'Angelo Russell probably as well, and kind of want to center things around Anthony Edwards. And if you're trying to center things around Anthony Edwards, you're gonna want to bring in more youth and some of these veterans that you've kind of brought in to try and help you make the playoffs. Now you're gonna have to get rid of a lot of contracts movement and stuff like that. And do you really want to jump back into a full-time rebuild? Because it feels like the Timberwolves have been rebuilding forever, and that I feel like is an understatement too. Because yes, you had the one Jimmy Butler year where we were able to make things happen, and he was injured and everything like that, but was able to essentially play the first ever playing game, as I call it, where at the end of the season, the last game was Nuggets versus Timberwolves. Timberwolves ended up winning the game and getting the 8th seed because of it. If they would have lost the game, they wouldn't have made the playoffs. But they ended up winning that game, making the 8th seed, and going on to play in the playoffs. And immediately afterwards, Jimmy Butler the next season requests out, right? So you only were able to have 1 year of success so far with Cat, and that was, at this point, it's pointed at as Jimmy Butler's season with the Timberwolves. It's not pointed at Karl Anthony-Towns' season where he was able to get him over the hump. It's, hey, this other guy came in and did it for you type of thing, right? So you haven't really had success with Karl Anthony-Towns. You've been rebuilding the whole time he's been there, whether it be with Andrew Wiggins, whether it be with D'Angelo Russell, whether it be now with Anthony Edwards, whoever you have next to him. There was only one guy that was able to help you get to the playoffs, and then he immediately just decided that your organization wasn't where he wanted to be. And then when you look at even prior to that, Kevin Garnett's successful seasons with the Timberwolves are almost 20 years ago now. It's that's a guy that in the early 2000s was making stuff happen with the Timberwolves before he ended up going on to play with the Celtics and win a championship there. And it's been a long time since the Timberwolves have really seen continued success in back-to-back seasons or something like that. So if you do end up having to get rid of Karl Anthony-Towns, I almost wonder if this would be a situation where with the whole Ben Simmons situation on how he's not getting traded and how they're kind of calling his bluff on that, I wonder if this could be like the first true star that requests out and the team just refuses. Now I'd have to double check Karl Anthony-Towns' contract to see how long he's under contract with the team at this point, as we kind of head into this potentially dicey area for him. But If he's under contract for a decent amount of time, there's a very good chance that, this could be that first time where that star player that decides he wants out, as it happens every single year, just doesn't get moved because the team doesn't want to push themselves back into a full rebuild, as this is really the closest team that they've had without Jimmy Butler to being able to make the playoffs. And you've got the potential, you've got really all the pieces that you need. It just kind of, you got to put it together and just make the playoffs. And if they reset it and start rebuilding again around Anthony Edwards, who's to say the organization isn't going to think that the exact same thing is going to happen with that number 1 overall pick? So it's definitely, if you are a Timberwolves fan, it'd be scary that if this team doesn't make the playoffs. But kind of the point of this video is, are they kind of getting their stuff together? Are they finally figuring out just how to win some games in the season? And this is a team that, if they do kind of keep this on a roll and end up making the playoffs, it could be huge for this organization. Not only will it kind of almost guarantee that Cat won't be leaving, but it'll do just so much for your fans to show that you want to win and you're going to do everything in your power to win, and then that you actually get there. And once these players get the taste of success, I think we would see, maybe not quite to the extent of what we saw in Phoenix, but Phoenix was a team that was lose ever since Steve Nash, right? But then they go to the bubble, and what was it? They won all 11 games or something like that, and didn't end up making the playoffs, or the play-in game, right? And they finally tasted what it was like to have some success and just get it all ripped away from them because they hadn't done it all year. And once then they brought in Chris Paul to kind of wrap things up and fill it all out. The team hasn't looked back since, right? They ended up going to the finals, and the team is now on a historic win streak for their franchise. So if this Minnesota Timberwolves team tastes that success, that's all you need them to do. Is they've seen it, because that's really what happened. Is they saw it when Jimmy Butler was there, but they didn't taste it. And a lot of these guys are different guys than who was there as well. Now obviously, like, the main guy, like Karl Anthony-Towns, is still there, but Anthony Edwards wasn't there, D'Lo wasn't there, Taurean Prince wasn't there, Patrick Beverley wasn't there. I mean, a plethora. Jared Vanderbilt wasn't there. Plethora of guys on the roster, probably 90% of the guys on the roster weren't there when that happened. So if you can get all these guys together to taste that success again, and really be like, oh, we can do this, then who's to say that next year this team doesn't just rally together and then start getting consistent success? Because that's what you look for in a franchise, right? You don't want to be middle of the pack where you're unable to be good enough to really compete, but you're unable to be bad enough to get a high pick. Well, the Timberwolves have just been bad enough to get a high pick recently. Whereas if they can kind of get in that trend of hit the middle where maybe you aren't completely competing this year, right? Kind of what the Orlando Magic were for a few years there when they had Vucevic and everything like that. And then, you have the talent that you should be able to compete, especially as Edwards kind of comes into his own and Karl Anthony-Towns continues to dive into his prime, especially as your role players get a little bit more used to the league, a little bit just healthier. That's the big thing with the Timberwolves, is if they're healthy, they're a good basketball team. But as Jared Vanderbilt kind of gets into his mid-20s, and then as Josh Okogie's in his mid-20s and everything like that, if you can just get all that to kind of work for you, and you've tasted the success already, there's a good chance that you're able to come out and make something happen. And who knows, maybe you could be competing for a championship in 5 years. So this year is crucial for the future of the Minnesota Timberwolves. And personally, I think I would love to be pleasantly surprised by this team, but I do think that by the end of the season, we're going to look back and it's going to be the same old, and they just weren't able to do it. They had a brief moment of of clarity of what it would look like, and then it just crumbled back to how it typically is. So I hope that they can figure it out and get it all done, and just make the organization good and everybody have just fun winning basketball games for them, for the fans and for the players and everything. But at the end of the day, it's just hard for me to say that it's going to happen, just due to their track record and just due to also, kind of the schedule that they're going to have to go to, because now that they kind of got their things on a roll, like I said, they just lost that game to Washington. Well, if they don't end up beating Brooklyn, we could see a long losing streak start to begin, because every single team that they play in the month of December is currently a playoff caliber team, whether they're in the playoffs right now or no, every single team that they play in this month is currently in the playoffs right now. And those teams are obviously Brooklyn, Atlanta, Utah, Cleveland, Portland, Denver, the Lakers, Dallas twice, Utah again, Boston, New York, and then Utah again. So every single team there, the worst team you're playing record-wise right now, or standings-wise in that whole thing, is the Denver Nuggets, who are 10th and would be the bottom of the play-in. But the Denver Nuggets are also very riddled with injuries right now, and are a team that only 2 years ago made it to the Western Conference Finals. So it's going to be a very difficult month for them here, and I think December really could end up being a make or break it month for them. If they're able to stay around 500 by the end of this month, big things could be happening for the Timberwolves, and big positive things. But I don't really see it happening. So let me know what you guys think. Do you think the Timberwolves can finally find their stride, or do you think it's just going to be the same old? I think we all want to see success for them, but we're also at this point of believing that it probably never will happen. So with that said, I hope you guys enjoyed. It's been your boy Dom, and I'll catch y'all next time. Peace out, guys.